And
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us once again on Dojo Live. Today, Wednesday, the 13th of February, 2019. It's already what is that? A sixth of the way finished almost this year.
yeah,
Crazy. My name is Kim Lantis. We're broadcasting live from one of Nearsoft's offices in Hermosillo, Sonora. Joining me is one of my teammates, Carlos Ponce. Hey,
hi Kim.
Carlos. It's good to be here. I haven't hosted in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, Kim.
Yeah. And of course, today we'll be discussing how to decode the buying patterns of your next customer. Here to tell us how he's helping companies do just that is the founder and CEO of Slintel, Deepak Anchala. I hope I got that right. And welcome to
Perfect.
Dojo Live, Deepak.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Kim. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me.
It's a
Thank
pleasure,
you.
Deepak.
Yes, it is our pleasure. So to go ahead and get us started, Deepak, why don't you please tell us a bit more about yourself and your background?
Sure. So, hi, everyone. I'm Deepak Anchala. So, a quick background about myself. So, I did my engineering way back in the day, did my MBA straight after that, worked in three different continents, and made my way to US 7 years ago. So, predominantly, I've been working in the sales and marketing space. And in my last role, I was leading sales for a company called Traction in the United States. And during the course of this journey, basically noticed a pain point that most salespeople face and decided to solve that pain point myself, being in the valley. I think that was a
Okay.
natural transition for me. So that's how I ended up starting Slintel.
Very good. So let's talk about Slintel and that pain point, what your product is and the problem you're solving.
Sure. So what we're doing at Slintel is we're building a personalized sales recommendation engine. Our goal is to improve the productivity of every sales rep. And what we mean by that is if you talk to salespeople today, you would notice that almost 80% of their time is spent on research and less than 20% is actually spent on meeting people and closing deals. And we wanted to
Right.
change that, right? So we thought there has to be a better way of doing it. And then we asked ourselves the question, what will really improve their conversion rates, right? And we figured out that the one question that they need to answer is who is going to buy my product or service today, not tomorrow, not day after, but who's going to buy my product today, right? And that's a very difficult question to answer, right? So the
Yeah,
way we set out solving that is we said, there's a lot of data out there online nowadays, right? So we said, can we run some big data algorithms, look at all of the data out there, and try to infer patterns on what buyers are buying today, and based on that, can we derive some inferences on who's going to buy your product? That's
Uh-huh.
what we wanted. And then we started overlaying that with internal campaign data as well to give recommendations.
Right. There's a terminology that you had come up with. I think this is actually on the upcoming of our the background of who you are on our Dojo Live website, and it's this terminology, this spray and pray approach, which actually I thought was really funny, really witty. Did you come up with that? Where did I so
Yeah,
the idea is to get away from that, right? So what is the spray and pray, and then how are you transitioning from there?
sure. Great
And what
question.
benefits does this have not only for companies but for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at the nature of enterprise sales today, right? I think spray and pray it's a very commonly used term. I probably used it for the sales context here. What a lot of people do in this space is, there's millions of decision makers, thousands of companies. So on any given day, a sales rep comes into office and then it picks and chooses, right? These are the 100 people I'm going to reach out to today based on my ideal customer profile, right?
Mhm.
And then he sprays and prays. So he basically sends out cold emails, cold calls them, hoping it's a numbers game. So hoping that 1 out of 100 will give him a response. But at the same time, it backfires a lot of times. So
Right.
what happens is if you're not reaching out to the right set of people who are ready for your product, you're essentially burning bridges between them, right? They could potentially have been a good customer 3 months down the lane, but because of your frequent interaction 3 months prior, you may have burned that bridge already. So,
They're
so we
just
thought,
annoyed.
it just gets annoying not having done the research before reaching out to them. So I think that's what we're setting to solve.
So you mentioned something. You said the words ideal client profile. What's the definition of this, or what's your definition of this?
Sure. So traditionally, I think what the definition of ICP has been for companies is they look at a target segment that is most likely to buy their product or service, right? So it could be a certain geography, a certain territory, a certain size of company, and then they decide that my product resonates best with this audience, and they should be my ideal customers. I think I would like to add to that. I think the way you should look at ideal customer profile is not just look at who you think is a good fit for you, but also look at what the data says. So when you have your own campaigns going out, so you know where you're getting responses, where you're getting demos and conversions. So I think the ideal customer profile has to map to your vision of who's the ICP versus what is data telling you, and club those two together to come up with the ideal set of recommendations.
Mm-hmm. So, like, I think there's this idea. To me, there's this perhaps this potential conflict of who I want to work with, right? Not only who I think my ideal customer or client profile is, but who I want that to be. Like, I'm looking for these specific people for whatever reasons versus who's actually most likely to buy my product. Is there conflict there? Like, how do we break that cycle? Which one should have the most weight, or how do we kind of deal with that clash?
Yeah. So good question. I think the question on who is most likely to buy my product or service, those are like quick wins, right? Those are low hanging fruit, because if you know they're most likely to buy, why not sell to them, right?
Right.
Versus where you want to be, like whom do you really want to sell to? So I think that is a bit of a tougher sell, but nevertheless, it should be in your audience. They may not be ready to buy today, but they may need some education, some awareness of your product. It might be an entirely new industry that you are in, right? So I would definitely say start with the low hanging fruit, right? If you know that there are people who have a higher propensity to buy, and then go beyond that and see is there anyone else. But when you go beyond that, also I think you will find some triggers. You will know that even within that segment out there, there are some people who have more propensity to buy than the others. So I think that's what you need to find out.
Okay. And this is different than getting the people you want to buy you.
I would say getting the people you want to buy should be broken down into two components, right? Of those people, who do you think has a propensity to buy? I'm not saying that they are going to buy your product, but who has a propensity to buy? Like, for example, I'll just give you an example here. So there might be people who might be researching similar products like yours, right? They might be Googling them, or they might have bought similar products. Or your analysis would be primarily based on their size and their consumption data, that they are a good fit for you. So even that segment, I think, can be broken down into people who have a propensity to buy and who don't have a propensity to buy, and it all boils down to data.
Okay. Very good. So can we talk about the data a little bit? Like, for me, I'm not a developer. It's not what I do. This idea of kind of big data is, for me, is kind of elusive. Like, but I imagine that a product like yours uses, right, immense amounts of data. So how do you guys get a handle of this? Like, what types of tools might you use? Or, for example, the developers who might be watching today's episode, what recommendations might you have for them if they're also working with products that use big data?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So firstly, we consume a lot of data. So we look at around 100 billion data points on a monthly basis.
Can you repeat that number?
100 billion data points on a monthly basis.
100 billion.
100 billion.
100 billion data points?
Data points on a monthly basis. Yes.
Okay.
So so what we do is we track 6 million companies out there, and we map them to 15,000 different products that they're using today. So we identify which company uses which set of products, and we track that over time. So we know, like, if company was using technology A 3 months ago, when did they move to technology B? And we start deriving inferences based on that. We start predicting, oh, because they moved like 3 months ago or 1 month ago, maybe their contract is coming up for renewal a year from then, right? So we start deriving inferences on the set of data we have. So yeah, so we consume large amounts of data, and so when you have such vast amounts of data, storing that data, processing it, you need to know the best way to kind of do all of that. So basically, we explored, like, our thought process was initially. So we went in with the tools that we got 2 credits for. Initially, that's how all entrepreneurs start. But then over time, it was a balancing act between, as a startup, you can't spend too much money. So it was a balancing act between, oh, what are the tools that you start off with, and as you start scaling your data, uh, so what tools can you ingest into your workflow? So it was essentially a mix of both.
All right. So how about yourself as a company, right? So you're a company who identifies or helps people identify that question of who's going to buy your product today. So what does your data tell you about yourself? How have you as a company, Slintel, used your own product?
Sure. Great question. So for us, right, if we were to look at our ICP based on our own data uh, sets, right, so we are in the marketing intelligence space, and what we can identify using our own tool is what other companies out there are using similar marketing intelligence products. And if we know a company is using a similar product, then we also know their pain point, because if you know your competitors' landscape, you know what they're good at and you know what they're not that good at, right? The moment you map that landscape, you can go and talk to the company saying, hey, I know you use product X and they really suck at this particular pain point, right? And that's what we're really good at. So I think that's one way we use the data set. The other thing is that today, product companies like ours, we integrate with a number of other products, right? For example, we have a Salesforce integration. So just identifying customers of Salesforce and reaching out to them has a much higher closure rate than trying to find out which CRMs companies are using. So yeah, we use it for competitive intel. We use it for looking up customers of our partners. We also like try to derive other inferences. So typically, like if we are the third or fourth tool a company would buy into their sales process, so we look at companies that have exactly 2 tools in their sales process, right? So you can derive those kind of inferences. You can look at contract renewal data, reach out to them 2 months before the contract renews, and say, hey, I know your renewal is coming up. Do you want to have a chat? Right.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of inferences you can derive.
That's really interesting. I'm also looking here. You had mentioned a statistic that says the industry average is less than 2% on cold mails, like emails, I'm assuming, and less than 0.5% on cold calls. Um, what's the averages maybe for your clients or yourself? What kind of increase, if you
Sure.
don't mind sharing?
Sure. So we do a lot of email reach outs, and we do a lot of LinkedIn reach outs as well. And there's a lot of inbounds that come to us through SEO and AdWords today, right? So we have different response rates on different channels. So on cold mails, typically, if you read books like Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross, right? Typically, like a 5% response rate is considered to be a really good response rate, right?
Uh-huh.
There are few companies that get a 5% response rate. And we are closer to that number right now, using all the strategies that we have been doing on the emails. On LinkedIn reach outs, we have a much higher response rate. That's because, we initially connect with our decision makers first, and then we share on social a lot of our interesting blog posts.
Uh-huh.
So kind of there's a nurture process before you actually ask for the sale. So we have actually believed this. So we don't directly go for the sale. In a lot of cases, we nurture our leads through different marketing campaigns, um, through a free trial sign up, through by giving them a lot of content, in being a
Right.
data platform, and then eventually when they're ready, we ask them for the sale.
Kim, I have a question for Deepak, if I may step in.
Of course.
You just mentioned, Deepak, something that definitely pulled my attention. You mentioned Aaron Ross and predictable revenue, right? Um, the reason why it pulled my attention is because once we worked with him, we hired him for some training internally at Nearsoft. And of course, we're talking about his approach is, predictable. It's about being predictable in software as a service sales. But we're talking about software products, which is basically B2C. Let's put it that way, right? What would you say in the case of B2B, for example, in terms of intelligence, marketing intelligence, and analytics, or whatever tools are out there? what would you say is in from your standpoint, greatest challenge to better serve these markets? These B2B companies that are in dire need of really good marketing intelligence tools. How would you like to approach them? What would you tell them, or what sort of adjustments can you make to your product in order to best cater to their needs, if applicable? What is your take on this?
Sure, absolutely. Great question. And I think a very broad question as well. So companies selling to other businesses, B2B, right? For them, I think most companies, they start off by hiring salespeople, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing to do. But a lot of times, just cold email without like a nurture campaign, without marketing, tends to have like overall low response rates. So what most companies tend to do is they hire salespeople, they get a CRM, and then they say, hey, figure it out, right? Go and convert. And it becomes pretty challenging because, on one hand, the CRM is more like the engine of a car, right? You need fuel. You need fuel in the car to actually move it. So the fuel is basically your pipeline, right? How is it looking?
Yes.
What are you putting into the CRM? So there's a process in which they need to get and nurture leads into the pipeline. And I think that becomes very important. So even if they don't use a marketing tool, even if they just use, like, startups, when they start out, they generally don't have a marketing process at that time. So even if it's just a sales funnel, you really want to be sure that what you're putting on the top of the funnel is really going to convert at the bottom of the funnel, right? So that's why the ICP and the predictability, like who is most likely to buy my product, becomes so important. But if you can do that even ahead, like if you can do that at the marketing layer itself, right? You can predict with a fair degree of accuracy who is most likely to buy your product, and then nurture them through marketing campaigns and then put them through the sales funnel. You're going to get tremendously high response rates compared to your previous campaigns. And that's what I would strongly encourage companies to do is so sales should not be looked at as a standalone entity. It should always be in conjunction with marketing, and you should always try to get the top of the funnel correct.
Okay, thank you so much, Deepak. And one more, and then I'll pass on the mic to Kim. You're helping us in this conversation. You are helping us, and of course our viewers. You're helping us to decode, buying patterns. That's essentially the topic that we chose for today. So in that sense, and I'm interested in, this is kind of an open-ended question. What exactly are we to expect in the next 5 years for any of us who wish to buy software products of any kind? So what are going to be the trends? What are going to be where is the industry lining us towards in terms of what's going to be happening in the next 5-10 years from now? Are we talking about I don't know, artificial intelligence? Are we talking about what is it that's going to be there that we need to be on the lookout for in order to predict what our next customer is going to be?
Sure, great question. So I think if you look at buying and selling of enterprise products today, right, I think there's a big divide, right? There are companies helping buyers like Gartner, like Forrester, right, or G2 Crowd, helping buyers discover what products to buy, and there are companies helping sellers sell, right? So like discovery platforms, right?
Yeah.
But there's a big divide, and the divide basically makes it difficult because the buyers are still struggling identifying what to buy, and the sellers are also still struggling whom to sell to, right? So I think data is going to converge the two together, right? Nowadays there's so much data, and if it can be mined appropriately and used correctly, so I think the divide between them is going to reduce. And where I see is, eventually in the end, there could be an enterprise marketplace here. Just like, you have Amazon on the consumer side, which is enabling buyer and seller transactions pretty seamlessly. So I think data is going to play a major role in building transparency between buyers and sellers and showing exactly buyers what to buy and sellers whom to sell to the point that at some point you're going to see like an enterprise marketplace and transactions at the enterprise level being done via a common platform.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Deepak. I appreciate your insights. So, Kim, back to you, and then back to you. Seems like we're approaching the final segment of the conversation. As I mentioned, time flies when we're having fun. So, Kim, back to you, please.
Sure. Thank you, Carlos. Deepak, I'm kind of interested in you as an individual, as an entrepreneur. Slintel is how old?
It's two years and 4 months.
2 years and 4 months. Okay, very good. So in this time, um, what has been one of your perhaps biggest mistakes that you've made? What did you learn from it?
Sure.
Words of wisdom, huh? Words of wisdom.
Yeah, I think it's
Cool.
always more fun to talk about failures and mistakes, right? So I think lots of them. I'm just trying to think which is the biggest one. So startup.
Pick one. It doesn't have to be the biggest.
So I think probably build. So what we started doing initially was we went to the market first, even before we had a product built. And a lot of people say that's the right way to do it, right? But I would have, if I were to do it again, I would have had the product built at the same time we were going to market. Primarily because they're both like two ends of a seesaw, right? You have to like get some customers, build some product, get some customers, build some product. So I think there was a bit of a time lag for us where we ended up getting customers who were waiting for product features to be built, and the product build took a bit of a time. But yeah, my advice to all entrepreneurs doing that is do both parallelly. Like, I know entrepreneurs who focus only on product and go to sales much later, or vice versa. But both of them have to. It's a difficult thing to do, but it has to be done at the same time.
Okay, that's very wise. Thank you. And how about what is one of the one things that makes you most proud? Like, what did you do right?
Sure. So I think we bootstrapped our way from nothing, right? With just an idea. Um, so convincing the first person to on that idea to join you, then hiring an entire team, convincing investors. So the whole journey is itself like an accomplishment in itself. But I think the biggest, if I were to pick one thing, it would just be the resourcefulness of everything, right? So when you start off with an idea, you have nothing. You're on a clean slate, right? So you have to find the resources to put your idea to work. You have to find resources to sell your idea out, and you have to read books. You have to talk to founders. You have to run surveys. You have to talk to investors to get some feedback. But the resourcefulness of all of this is what makes an entrepreneur an entrepreneur. So I think that would be my biggest accomplishment there.
Congratulations. And what was it that this is always one of my biggest um, questions because I don't know. I guess I don't consider myself to be that brave. Um, what was it in your life that made you decide to kind of take that plunge, like to go for it?
Sure. I think a couple of things. It was more of a natural progression. It wasn't all of a sudden that I decided, I'll take the plunge. It was more so in the years that I've been working in the same space. So I noticed a pain point, and the idea grew on me for like a few years. And then I saw a couple of trends in the space, right? So you know that when the timing is right, when you see a wave that you're riding in the space. So we saw the big data wave, and we saw personalized recommendations hitting all kinds of products, right? And then club that with a pain point that you are seeing. I think that prompted me, and I would say like being in the Silicon Valley, you're always thinking about starting something, right? So, so if you go to a coffee shop here, if you go to a co-working space,
Peer pressure.
yeah, people are just building stuff. So that would just expedite your decision-making process there.
Very good. Well, congratulations.
Sure.
Really. I'm very much interested. Is there anything else as we're wrapping up? I think we've got about 4 or 5 more minutes left of our call. Any final words of wisdom, anything that you'd like to share or talk about that we haven't yet talked about today?
Sure. So just some advice for everyone who's trying to be a budding entrepreneur, like who's trying to do something on their own, and this is the best advice I heard from another entrepreneur is just do it. Right? Right.
Yeah.
So it's not as difficult as it seems. I think the only difference between entrepreneurs and non-entrepreneurs is the risk-taking ability, right?
Is the what? I'm sorry?
It's just the risk-taking ability.
Right. Like I said, I'm not brave.
And in today's world, I think there's resources for everything, right? You just need to have an idea. You will find freelancers who will code and help you build that idea. You'll find people who will sell that idea. You'll find a lot of books, and you'll find, there's hundreds of different ways today that will help you achieve the goal that you want to achieve. So I would just say, it just takes a little bit of guts to quit what you're doing and start it. And And even if it doesn't work out, I mean, the learning you get in that 1 to 2 years is probably what you would get in like 10 years of corporate work life. So you have nothing to lose. That's my advice.
Oh, I like that. Tomorrow will always come.
Yeah.
Very good. I guess based off of what you had just mentioned, I kind of like this idea of surrounding yourself with I don't want to say like-minded, because I think in that sense we get into this idea of like groupthink and like tunnel vision or whatever it might be. But the idea of getting people like-minded in the sense of risk takers to be on board, to have this element of willingness. Is that something that you kind of sought out like intentionally, or is that something that just happened organically?
Sure. You mean when you're hiring the team, like-minded people in your team who are all
Yeah, like when you're constructing this idea, when you actually go into like the building phase, like you had mentioned the idea of getting freelancers on board and investors and etc. Like, how much of that in your experience was intentional, like, and how much of that just happened to happen?
So great question, and I get this question all the time because a lot of people who have an idea struggle with this. It's very difficult to find people, like-minded people initially, right? Who trust you on the same idea and who you can onboard as a co-founder, because
Right.
typically you want people with those relationships, right? But people will join you when you have something to prove, right? An idea is not enough in today's world. So, but there are resources that you can use to build a prototype, get the product out there, get your first customer, get some traction, and then you will find people coming and buying your idea much more easily. So I think the like-mindedness also comes from traction, right?
Uh-huh.
Even as a solo entrepreneur, you can gain significant amount of traction using freelancers and the resources out there.
Mhm.
And that would be my advice. Like, don't spend too much time looking for co-founders. If you can't find them, go ahead and do it anyway. You will find them eventually.
And from the sounds of it, you adhere to the fail fast mindset.
Yes, I'm a strong believer in that. So I think if so, especially in SaaS businesses, the nature of SaaS businesses is you can't build a lifestyle business. It's very difficult to build a lifestyle business here, right? Because tomorrow, if somebody raises more money, they build product features faster, they can take your entire customer base away. Since most of SaaS businesses are in a monthly subscription, right?
Right.
So I think in today's world, like you have to move very, very fast to survive, and it's not just to grow; it's to survive. So like I'm a strong believer in grow fast, fail fast.
Very good. Thank you very much. Well, it's been. I can't believe our half an hour has passed already.
I told you.
I know it always goes like this. But Deepak, if anyone was interested in to be able to get a hold of you or to know more about Slintel, how might they do that?
Sure. So our website is slintel.com, slintel.com, and my email is Deepak, my first name @slintel.com. So feel free to drop me an email. You'll also find a contact form on our website. If you're interested in joining us, if you're interested in buying our products, feel free to check us out and drop us an email.
Yeah, and also I'd like to remind the audience that if you're watching this or will be in the following days, all Deepak's contact info is going to be right there on the page on the DojoLIVE website. So just go there, dojo.nearself.com. You already the drill, and look for the recent interview and conversation that we had with Deepak, and all his information is going to be right there. Okay, so Kim, before we go, I'd like to make a quick announcement, if I may.
Sure.
And this is about next week's interview, next week's conversation, and that's going to happen on the same day as this week, which is Wednesday, at same time, 1 Pacific. And we're going to be having a conversation with Mr. Tom Powers, the founder and CEO of Find It, which is a travel software platform to find alternative search options for vacation rentals. So that's going to be about travel tech. So I think that's going to be part of our travel edition. But again, it's Tom Powers, Find It. I mean, that's the name of the company, findit.com. Yeah, exactly. And so the topic is emerging search and content sharing platforms. So just keep an eye on that and make a note of it, folks. Next week, same time, same day. Back to you, Kim.
No, that's it. Thank you very much, Deepak. On behalf of Carlos, myself, Nearsoft, and DojoLIVE, I thank you for your time today. I wish you the greatest success in your endeavors, and we look forward to seeing how your company and your tools can help people find their ideal clients and sell better faster.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
guys.
So, okay. Yeah, absolutely. Deepak, we're going off the air now. So stick around for a minute with us, okay?
Okay. All right.
Okay.
See you.
Bye bye,
See you next
everyone.